London AIM-listed Iofina, which extracts iodine from brine pumped out of onshore US oil wells, has just reported another period of record EBITDA and revenue. It now has 6 plants in operation. Chief Executive is Dr. Tom Becker, who joins us now. And Tom, just quickly run us through what's been happening here, because you seem now to be fairly consistent in this record ground that you're covering. This is for the half year. Of course, you've had record full year results before this. Explain how this has happened, what the main drivers are.
Thanks, Jeremy. A couple of things have happened. First of all, we've really focused on our operations at our current plants, and we're in a growth phase where we're building new iodine-based plants. So we create iodine from oil and gas wells in the United States. There's waste brine that is brought up with the oil and gas wells, and we use our technology to extract iodine from these from this waste stream from oil and gas operations. And we've been making iodine in commercial quantities for about the last decade, but really have focused in and honed in our technology so that we are a smooth running ship and consistently producing iodine. And we're building new plants. We just in the period we just opened our 6th plant, which opened up in June. So we're operating 6 plants in Oklahoma, and we've just done a really nice job. We're also helped by the fact that iodine prices have gone up in the past 12 months. And we, as iodine producers, we benefit from higher iodine prices. So all in all, very positive results for the half year of the company. And we've been on track on those for the positive results, not only from the top end sales, but also EBITDA levels for the past 4+ years as an organization.
Yeah, I want to pick up more on the economics of the market into which you're selling in just a moment. Just to quickly update us there, if you can, on how the second half has started. And how you feel about a possible repeat of the sort of trajectory, if you like, that you've begun to establish now, and investors, I guess, are now beginning to expect.
Yeah, which is a good thing. And, we expected from ourselves, too, to be able to execute our business plans. In the first half of the year, we had 24.3 million in sales and a 5.9 million EBITDA. And the second half looks good as well. I mean, the second half has started very well. Iodine prices have remained steady into the second half of the year. We expect that to occur throughout the second half of the year. And with additional iodine coming online from our newest plant, IO9, we expect the second half of the year to be a strong second half.
Yeah, let's pick up on this point about the market, as I said, into which you're selling. The economies, it seems to me that there is this supply deficit. In other words, demand is exceeding supply. What's brought that about? What's the market looking like to you at the moment?
So after COVID kind of stopped, there was a really kind of a boom in early 2021 for demand of iodine-based products. And frankly, the demand far outpaced the supply. And the supply has been pretty stable on a global market situation. And prices rose from about the $50 a kilo to about the $70 a kilo kind of range. The $70 a kilo kind of range has been at those type of levels for the last 12 months, and we expect those to move into the second half of the year. Demand for iodine has kind of plateaued in some areas, but there's also areas of growth. The biggest of those is X-ray contrast media usages for iodine. So injectable drugs for certain CT scans and things like that, where soft tissues need to be enhanced for imaging views. So we anticipate that market to continue to grow. It's the largest use of iodine. About a little over a quarter of the world's iodine is used in that market. And with healthcare systems in areas of the world and increasing amounts of availability to middle-class people, especially in Asia, we expect that market to continue to rise over the next few years.
And of course, I know many looking to companies like yourselves to try and fill that gap. And you've just started your 6th plant, as I said, which is IO9. I believe that started in June this year, didn't it? How's that going? Does it take a while for these new plants to ramp up, or are you at full production pretty much immediately?
Yeah, we're not at full production at IO9 currently. We expect to be at full production within the next month or two at IO9. When we work with a new partner, there's always some idiosyncrasies that you don't anticipate. And so we're not taking full volumes at IO9 yet. Our particular plant is operating as we expected it to, but our ability to be able to take in all the water that our partner has available will be ramping up over the next number of months. And this is not atypical, but it's probably taking a little bit longer at IO9 than we have had in other plants with this new partner. But we're also excited about our growth opportunities to build new iodine plants, and we anticipate hopefully being able to get an agreement signed for IO10 and get that under construction here soon.
Yeah, I noticed as well that you've negotiated what you say a favourable loan facility should you need to spend extra capex. What's the current environment like for borrowing money? We all know interest rates have gone up. We all know inflation is with us. It's looking like it's here to stay. I guess you and your team at the board have to expect the fact that that is life now. How does this change things for you? And what sort of rates you are now agreeing in terms of loan facilities?
Yeah, so we think we've done a really nice job with our borrowing and our banking relationship. So what we have is some term debt that we renegotiated back in 2020. And we're very proud of what we did as an organization, coming from very high debt loads to now we're basically have a little bit more cash than we even owe as an organization. So we're net cash positive. But the term loan is very favorable rates. A number of years ago, we locked in, I believe, 70% of that loan at around a 4% kind of rate. And then the additional, we have an additional term loan, an additional line of credit that yeah, you're right. It's variable. It's higher than it was a few years ago because interest rates have gone up. But our rates are a little over 2% plus the SOFR rate. So if we had to take on any additional funds from these lines of credit or this additional term loan to be able to supply the IO10 build or some other builds at chemical, we'd be looking at rates between 7.25% and 7.5%, which I think is very good rates in this particular environment. But more than it was for sure a couple of years ago. So we need to be prudent in how we build our plants, and we built IO9 from cash flow of the organization. So we hope to be able to do that with future plants. But if we need to go into a little bit of an additional borrowing, we have those lines in place for us to do that at a relatively good rate. And I think a good rate compared to a lot of other companies in positions like us.
It's interesting actually looking at some of the infrastructure building you've had to do for some of these big plants, because they are fairly hefty engineering operations, aren't they? But my understanding is you're also looking at some sort of smaller plants, mobile plants. Is that right? There's something you're looking at doing?
Yeah, so future years we're looking at other particular type of operations. So right now we get all of our brine supply, which is a raw material to produce iodine, from oil and gas operations and large pipeline systems. And it's key for us to get larger volumes at these larger plants. We're looking at other opportunities, not only for maybe some smaller sites with good concentrations of iodide, and those might be a more smaller footprint kind of plant for us to use. I wouldn't necessarily say they were 100% mobile, but they might be a smaller footprint kind of plant that allow us to take on smaller volumes of water. The other thing that we're looking at doing is potentially looking at some ways for us to control the water, whether it's drilling new brine wells or repurposing old shut-in oil and gas wells to provide new brine sources to probably current plants. And that's in our long-term plans, but our short-term goals are to continue to build these IOZOR plants like we did at IO9. It's something we know how to do and do well, and we have opportunities to build at least a couple more plants here in the near future, and we'll be focused on those while also spending some efforts into alternative sources of brine to create iodine.
Yeah, and clearly these big plants, as you say, more volume. When you're looking at these small plants, I don't know how far down the road you've got in terms of your investigations about this, but when you have small plants like this, is there a different economy of scale, or do you get the same sort of returns? I mean, clearly you've got the flexibility, the mobility. You can reuse plants in different places. So I guess you can go to places where you're able to extract relatively good rates. Do you see a degradation of the economies of scale when you go down to some of these proposed smaller facilities that you're looking at the moment?
Well, the reason why we're building these large plants is because you do get a better return on investment and likely cost of production with larger volumes of water. But there are some interesting opportunities at some smaller scales with, I would say, additional concentrations of iodide in the water, and that changes the economics also. So I'll say that the larger plants, there's a reason why we build the larger plants for larger volumes, because we do get a better impact. But I think there are some opportunities in niche circumstances for these smaller plants down the road. It will be location dependent, and we are looking through those types of modeling to determine whether or not these smaller mobile plants will be part of iAFina's future or not. But we're looking into those opportunities.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the share price chart, which has seen some gains recently. I'm interested also to look at this in the context of a broker note that's come through from Canaccord, your Nomad. They've got a price target, this red dotted line at the top here, 40 pence. They're currently trading at 29.25. I mean, clearly as the chief executive, I know we know this because we've covered this ground before with you, and you've explained that you obviously, like all CEOs, you don't have any control over the share price. But how comfortable do you feel with targets around about the 40 pence level, fairly high up from where you are at the moment in terms of proportions?
I think we focus on making iAFina as profitable as we possibly can within the scope of what we know how to do as a business. We want to run our business in a way where we're as efficient as possible and as profitable as possible. And we have a growth plan in place to continue to grow the company by building new IZOR plants and actually creating new types of derivatives through iAFina Chemical. What the market does as far as share price is concerned, we don't have a lot of control over, but what my job is and what our management's job is continue to tell the story of iAFina and why we differentiate ourselves from other people in the marketplace. That we're continuing to grow as a business, that we're continuing to grow in our profitabilities, and get the word out of how solid and a growth company iAFina is, and then working with brokers and PR firms and other things like that to get the message out into the market to hopefully increase the visibility of iAFina and to, I think, get the share price higher if it'll go higher. Again, we don't have total control over that. The market forces have a lot of control over that, but it's our job to run the company as best we can and get that message out of what we're doing as a company and why we continue to grow. So I think, the 40p mark is more than reasonable if you look at our past performances and our record sales and EBITDA levels. It's not an absurd target to be able to get to.
And of course, there are other ways of rewarding shareholders in terms of dividends and so forth. So it's not all about being a growth stock, I guess. Do you feel that in the last couple of years or so, you've begun to mature, you've explained more to investors about what your long-term plans are, and that reward to shareholders in other ways are better than just seeing incremental share price growth?
So dividends, stock buybacks, other ways to give current shareholders value for their investment. It's something that the board keeps evaluating. Right now, we continue to grow and reinvest money back into plants like IO9, and we'll be building IO10 here in the near future. So we'll be reinvesting the cash back into the business. We will be considering dividends or buybacks as we continue to grow as an organization.
Yeah. Look, Tom, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks indeed for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks indeed for your time.
Good to speak with you again.
That's good. Tom Becker, who's the chief executive of iAFina.